Hi, welcome to Fix That Format. I'm Pamela. I teach the computer classes at the Arlington Heights Job Center. Some of you may have been in class with me. Since we can't meet face-to-face, I've put together a video series focused on fixing some of the common resume layout problems in Microsoft Word. This particular series of short videos is about using bulleted lists in Word without making yourself crazy. There are 3 videos in this series. Video 1, short and sweet, how to create a bulleted list in Microsoft Word. Video 2, customizing a bulleted list. Video 3, alternate ways of applying bullets to a Word document when you can't use the bullet feature. In this second video, we're talking about customizing a bulleted list. If you need the basics about creating a bulleted list, just take a look at the first video in this series. And by customize, I mean understanding what formatting commands are part of a bulleted list, how to customize all parts of a bulleted list, and how to restore a bulleted list back to the defaults. Okay, first step, identifying the individual formatting commands that make up a bulleted list, because you can't be confident about changing something if you don't know what it is that you're changing. Here I have a group of normal style paragraphs that I'm going to turn into a bulleted list. So I'm going to select the paragraphs, go up to the Home tab, over to the paragraph group. Here's the bullet button. I'm just going to click on it. Now I've got a bulleted paragraph list, but what actually changed here? Let's figure that out. Okay. Here's what we're looking for. These are the major parts of a bulleted list: a bullet symbol, a tab space, indentation, space after each bulleted paragraph. And how do I know that? Well, let's take a look. Of course, there's the bullet symbol itself. I've turned off the show hide so it's easier to see, and clearly the space after the paragraphs is tightened up. Now, about the indent. And this is why you want the ruler bar. This is the indent marker. And when there are no indents in a paragraph, the 2 pieces are together and it sits over on the left margin. I'm going to see that if I take the bullets off of these paragraphs, which I'm going to do. I'm selecting, turning off the bullet feature. And you can see then that that marker goes together and sits over here on the left margin. Now I'm going to reapply the bullets, and you can see that the marker moves. Not only that, it's split. And what this indicates is a hanging indent. That means that the first line of the paragraph is further to the left than the rest of the lines of the paragraph. We don't use this kind of indent much in regular document formatting, but it is the foundation of a bulleted list. The top half of the marker corresponds to the position of the bullet, and the bottom half of the marker corresponds to where the text is. Now, if I turn on the show hide, you'll also see a little arrow. That indicates a tab space, and that's what keeps your text in line so it doesn't bop back over here to the left margin when the text wraps. Right? Once you understand it, especially about the indent, it's much easier to customize and make changes. Just what is a bullet? A bullet is like any other character inserted into your document, but we can't directly insert the bullet character ourselves. That will totally mess it up. Since we use the bullet feature to apply the bullets, we need to use the bullet feature to change the bullets. Here's how. Okay, here's my standard bullet list with the default round style bullets. Remember, for an electronic resume, they should stay that default style, but for other documents, you may want to make a change. Select the paragraphs, go up to the bullet button, and choose the drop-down arrow. You can see it will show you recently used bullets. There's kind of a little bullet library. If you want to use one of those, just click it. It will replace the default. If you want a new style, come down to the bottom where it says Define New Bullet, and click on that. And up here it says symbol. This is going to take you to what I call the symbol library when you click it. And even though the default bullet is here in the symbol font, there are a lot more choices if you go down to Wingdings, which is further down here somewhere. In Wingdings, you'll find stars and diamonds and squares and things like that. You find something that you want to use. I'm going to use this little X here. You select it, click on OK. If you want to, you can even change the font color or the font size. If not, just go ahead and click on OK. And the new bullets will simply replace the old. If you decide at some point that you want to change it back, select your paragraphs, go back up to the drop down, and find the standard bullet again. It's that simple. The most important key to dealing happily with the bullet feature is understanding that indentation is the foundation of a bulleted paragraph. I know I already said it, but it's worth repeating. Indentation, of course, in general, is just the repositioning of a paragraph away from the margin, and bulleted paragraphs are based on hanging indents, like we said. A hanging indent is where the first line of the paragraph is further to the left than the rest of the lines of the paragraph. So it's really opposite kind of indent to a first line indent. You can make indentation adjustments on the ruler bar using the indent marker, which can be very frustrating, so be ready to use your undo button if something goes wrong. But let's try it. Okay, here's my ruler and my indentation marker. I know this is a hanging indent because the top part of the marker is further to the left than the bottom half of the marker. The top half of the marker indicates that the first line of the paragraph, which in this case is really the bullet, is a 1/4 inch from the margin. The bottom half of the marker, which correlates to the text, is indented a 1/2 inch. When you're dealing with bulleted paragraphs, you can make 3 different space adjustments. If you want to keep the same amount of space between the bullet and the text, but reposition everything, you use this little square. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to just select my paragraphs. I'm going to go up here. You got to get your mouse in just the right place and press down and drag it over. And as you can see, the space stays the same, but everything's just shifted. I'm going to undo that. If you want to change the position of the bullet, again, I've got my paragraphs selected. You just move the top marker. So I'm going to come up here and simply drag it. And you can see that just the bullet is moving away. The text is staying where it is. Once again, I'm going to undo that. And then the third choice is if you want to move the text and have the bullet stay where it is. So it's selected. This is tricky. This is the little triangle, not the square. Pop up and say hanging indent. And if I drag that, you can see it's just dragging the text. The bullet is staying where it was. Once again, I'm going to undo that. If you get it all kind of messed up, you want to go back to the defaults, that's usually pretty simple. You just reselect and go up and turn it off. And then if you turn it on again, it should go back to the defaults, the 1/4 inch for the bullet and the 1/2 inch for the text. The last custom option is to change the amount of space after each paragraph if you really feel it's necessary. It's kind of a pain to do it. Normally we change the space after paragraph like this. I'm selecting the paragraphs, and this is on the layout, or in some versions of Word, it's page layout. And here's the spacing, and normally I would change the space after, but that won't actually change the space between the bulleted list paragraphs. I have to dig a little deeper. I'm going to go back to the Home tab and into the paragraph group, and over to the right is the launch arrow, and this will take me into the paragraph dialog box. Down here at the bottom it says, don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. You need to deselect that. And then while you're here, you can type in whatever amount of space you want. Say I want 10 point. Put in a 10, select OK. And you can see that, in fact, that does make the change, but it's such a pain to do it. If you remove the bullets, I've got these selected, I take it off. If I go back and just click on the bullet button again, it will go right back to the default. So you kind of have to decide, is it really worth it? The other problem is that even though this goes back to the default, that 10 point of space might still be there. So you might have to double check the layout. Here you can see it says 10 and it really should be 8. So I'm going to click on that, hit 8, hit enter. And again, you're not going to see any change here because that's all part of the bulleted list. But, you know, you can do it. I usually don't even bother to talk about it in class, but it is possible to do it if you really, 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 really want to. So to round it all up, change the bullet style by clicking on the drop-down arrow on the bullet button. Change the position of the bulleted paragraphs by manipulating the indentation marker on the ruler. To adjust the amount of space after each paragraph of a bulleted list, open the paragraph dialog box first and uncheck Don't add space between paragraphs of the same style before making the change. Just remember to take it one step at a time, select your list before you make any changes, and don't be afraid to use your undo button if something goes wrong. Just undo it and go on from there. It'll be great. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it answers some of your questions and makes you feel more comfortable with bulleted lists. The third and last video in this series is about applying bullets in situations where the bullet feature doesn't work. And remember, you can always go back to the first video for a quick refresher on the basics of bulleted lists. Thanks again. See you soon.